15 black celebrities who are actually hardcore perverts. What if the celebrities we celebrated for decades were hiding stories far darker than anything we saw on stage or on screen? Behind the awards, millions of dollars sold out arenas and legendary performances were controversies that permanently changed how some of these icons would be remembered. From R. Kelly's shocking criminal convictions and Suge Knight's violent downfall to Mike Tyson's troubled past, Chris Brown's infamous assault case, and Ye's career-altering controversies, these stories reveal the complicated reality behind celebrity fame. Some rebuilt their lives, others watched their reputations collapse. Stay with us as we uncover all 15 stories. Subscribe to Golden Black Legends and comment below which celebrity's downfall shocked you the most. Cuba Gooding Jr. Cuba Gooding Jr. once stood at one of Hollywood's highest peaks. After memorable appearances in Boys and the Hood and A Few Good Men, his performance as football star Rod Tidwell in Jerry Maguire transformed him into an international celebrity. In 1997, Gooding won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, delivering an exuberant acceptance speech that became almost as famous as his "Show Me the Money" scenes. For years, his infectious energy seemed inseparable from his public image. But decades after that triumph, serious allegations dramatically altered the conversation surrounding his career. Beginning in 2019, multiple women publicly accused Gooding of inappropriate sexual contact in separate encounters. Criminal charges followed in New York, while additional allegations emerged publicly. It is important, however, to distinguish accusations from conduct established through legal proceedings rather than treating every claim as proven fact. In April 2022, Gooding pleaded guilty in Manhattan to one misdemeanor count of forcible touching, admitting that he kissed a woman without her consent at a New York nightclub in 2018. Under the plea agreement, he completed court-ordered counseling and avoided jail. Later that year, the charge was reduced to a non-criminal harassment violation after he complied with the agreement's conditions. His legal difficulties did not end there. In 2023, Gooding settled a separate federal civil lawsuit shortly before trial. A settlement does not constitute a judicial finding of liability, so claims from that case should not be presented as proven criminal conduct. The contrast remains striking. An Oscar-winning actor, once celebrated by millions, later found his reputation overshadowed by misconduct allegations and a guilty plea. Cuba Gooding Jr.'s story demonstrates how quickly public admiration can collide with accountability and why fame can never place a celebrity beyond scrutiny for his actions. R. Kelly. R. Kelly's story represents one of the most dramatic collapses in modern music history. During the 1990s and 2000s, the Chicago-born singer became an enormously successful R&B artist responsible for hits including I Believe I Can Fly and writing or producing music for other major performers. He won 3 Grammy Awards and sold millions of records. Yet behind that commercial success, allegations involving sexual misconduct increasingly followed him and eventually overwhelmed his musical legacy. Concerns about Kelly's behavior had circulated publicly for decades. In 2008, he was acquitted of child pornography charges in Illinois. But years later, renewed reporting accusations from multiple women and the documentary series Surviving R. Kelly intensified scrutiny. Federal prosecutors subsequently brought separate criminal cases against him. In 2021, a federal jury in New York convicted Kelly on racketeering and sex trafficking-related charges. He received a 30-year federal prison sentence in 2022. In a separate Chicago federal case, Kelly was convicted in 2022 on 3 counts of producing child sexual abuse material and 3 counts of enticing minors for sex. He received another 20-year sentence, with most of it ordered to run concurrently with the New York sentence. The distinction matters. Kelly's story is not based solely on celebrity rumors or unresolved accusations. Multiple allegations existed, but his later federal convictions established specific criminal conduct through court proceedings. His fall remains extraordinary because of the distance between his cultural prominence and eventual imprisonment. awards, wealth, and influence could not shield him permanently from accountability. R. Kelly once possessed the kind of musical success most artists can only imagine. Today, his story stands as a disturbing reminder that extraordinary talent cannot erase criminal responsibility or guarantee that a celebrated legacy will survive what happens away from the stage. Michael Vick once appeared destined to redefine what an NFL quarterback could be. Selected first overall in the 2001 NFL Draft by the Atlanta Falcons, his combination of explosive speed and arm strength made him one of football's most electrifying stars. In 2006, he became the first NFL quarterback to rush for more than 1,000 yards in a season. Fame, lucrative contracts, and enormous expectations surrounded him. Then his career collapsed under the weight of a federal criminal investigation. In 2007, authorities uncovered an interstate dogfighting operation known as Bad News Kennels connected to property Vick owned in Virginia. Court documents described gambling and brutal treatment of dogs associated with the operation. Vick pleaded guilty to a federal conspiracy charge related to dogfighting and eventually received a 23-month federal prison sentence. The consequences extended beyond incarceration. The NFL suspended him, the Falcons moved on, lucrative endorsement relationships disappeared, and his reputation became permanently connected to the case. After serving his sentence, Vick attempted something few disgraced sports stars accomplish: a meaningful professional comeback. The Philadelphia Eagles signed him in 2009. By 2010, he had returned to elite-level football, earning Comeback Player of the Year honors and another Pro Bowl selection. Vick also publicly expressed remorse and worked with animal welfare initiatives after prison. Those efforts do not erase the suffering involved in the crime, and opinions remain divided over how his rehabilitation should affect his legacy. That tension makes his story compelling. Vick experienced extraordinary achievement, devastating disgrace, punishment, and an unlikely second chance. Michael Vick rebuilt his career after prison, but rebuilding a career and repairing a legacy are different things. His story leaves an uncomfortable question: when someone has served his sentence and demonstrated change, how much room should society allow for redemption? Miles Davis changed the sound of jazz repeatedly, but the brilliance of his music existed alongside a personal life that could be deeply troubled. Born in Illinois in 1926, Davis became one of the 20th century's most influential musicians. Albums such as Kind of Blue, Sketches of Spain, and Bitches Brew helped reshape jazz, while his restless creativity inspired generations of performers. Yet Davis never presented himself as a flawless figure. His autobiography and biographies describe periods of heroin and cocaine addiction, volatile behavior, and violence toward women. These aspects of his life should not be romanticized as the price of artistic genius. They were destructive behaviors that affected both Davis and people around him. His relationship with actress Cicely Tyson became an important part of his later life. They married in 1981 during a period when Davis was rebuilding his career after years of poor health, substance use, and withdrawal from public performance. Tyson was an important presence during his comeback, although their marriage eventually ended in divorce in 1989. What makes Davis particularly complicated is that personal turmoil never stopped his musical evolution for long. After spending much of the second half of the 1970s away from recording and performing, he returned during the 1980s and continued experimenting rather than simply reproducing his earlier sound. Davis died in 1991 at age 65, leaving behind an artistic legacy of extraordinary importance. But acknowledging that greatness does not require pretending his private behavior was admirable. Miles Davis demonstrates one of celebrity history's most uncomfortable truths: revolutionary art and serious personal flaws can exist within the same individual. Celebrating the music does not require excusing the harm, and confronting the harm does not erase the enormous influence of the music. Suge Knight. Few figures symbolize the dangerous intersection between music power and intimidation as strongly as Marion Suge Knight. As co-founder of Death Row Records, Knight helped build one of the defining labels of 1990s hip-hop, with artists including Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and Tupac Shakur associated with the label during its peak. Death Row became enormously influential, and Knight became one of the industry's most feared executives. His reputation was never based solely on music. Over the years, Knight accumulated arrests, lawsuits, probation problems, and allegations of intimidation and violence. Separating documented legal outcomes from decades of hip-hop mythology is essential because countless sensational stories about him have circulated without being conclusively established. The most consequential incident occurred in January 2015. During a confrontation in Compton, California, Knight drove a vehicle that struck two men, killing Terry Carter and injuring Clee Bone Sloan. Knight maintained that he had been attempting to escape a threatening situation. The case never reached a murder trial. In 2018, Knight pleaded no contest to voluntary manslaughter. He received a 28-year prison sentence, a punishment increased because of California sentencing rules and his prior criminal history. It was an extraordinary downfall for a man who once controlled one of hip-hop's most powerful companies. The executive who had occupied the center of a multi-million-dollar musical empire was now facing decades behind bars. Knight's history should not be embellished with every rumor attached to Death Row. The verified record is dramatic enough. Suge Knight rose through an industry where power could command extraordinary influence, but his story ultimately became defined as much by courtrooms and incarceration as platinum records, showing how quickly unchecked conflict can overwhelm even enormous success. Lil' Kim. Lil' Kim became one of hip-hop's most influential female voices, but behind the glamorous image was a legal crisis that eventually sent her to federal prison. Born Kimberly Denise Jones in Brooklyn, she rose through junior MFIA under the mentorship of the notorious B.I.G. Her 1996 debut album, Hardcore, established her as a major star, combining provocative confidence with a style that influenced generations of female rappers. The controversy that changed her career stemmed from a 2001 shooting outside New York radio station Hot 97 involving members of her entourage and a rival group. When investigators questioned Lil' Kim about who had been present, prosecutors later argued that she lied to protect people close to her. In 2005, a federal jury convicted her of 3 counts of perjury and 1 count of conspiracy. The case was not about whether Lil' Kim personally fired a weapon. It centered on false statements she made to investigators and a federal grand jury concerning people present during the confrontation. She was sentenced to 1 year and 1 day in federal prison, along with a fine and supervised release. Lil' Kim reported to prison in September 2005 and was released in July 2006 after serving approximately 10 months. Unlike many celebrity controversies built largely around rumor, this chapter of her life produced a documented conviction and incarceration. Yet it did not end her career. She returned to music, television, touring, and public appearances while maintaining her status as an important figure in hip-hop history. Lil' Kim's story demonstrates how loyalty can carry enormous consequences when it collides with the law. She reached extraordinary heights through talent and determination, but one courtroom battle ensured that her legacy would forever include both groundbreaking success and a costly lesson about accountability. Chris Brown. Chris Brown's rise was extraordinarily fast. Still a teenager when his self-titled debut album arrived in 2005, the Virginia-born singer quickly became one of R&B's biggest young stars. His singing, dancing, and stage presence produced major commercial success, while songs such as Run It helped establish him internationally. But in 2009, a violent incident involving Rihanna permanently changed his public image. In February that year, Brown assaulted Rihanna following an argument before the Grammy Awards. Photographs documenting her injuries intensified worldwide attention. Brown was arrested and later pleaded guilty to felony assault. A Los Angeles judge sentenced him to 5 years of probation, community labor, domestic violence counseling, and other conditions. The incident became impossible to separate from discussions of his career. Brown publicly apologized, but debates over accountability, rehabilitation, celebrity culture, and whether audiences should separate an artist from personal conduct continued for years. Brown, nevertheless, maintained a highly successful recording career. Albums continued reaching large audiences, tours remained commercially significant, and he accumulated numerous awards and chart achievements. That longevity created a complicated contrast. Professional success continued even while the 2009 assault remained a defining element of his public history. Brown has faced other legal disputes and allegations over the years. Those matters must be discussed individually rather than treating every accusation as established fact. The Rihanna case is different because his guilty plea provides a clear legal record. His story therefore raises questions that extend beyond one celebrity. Chris Brown demonstrates how fame can survive an enormous scandal without making the underlying conduct disappear. His continued success shows the power of talent and fan loyalty, but it also leaves audiences debating how accountability should function when an entertainer's professional achievements exist beside documented violence. O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson experienced one of the most dramatic transformations in American celebrity history. Once celebrated as a football superstar, actor and television personality, Orenthal James Simpson won the 1968 Heisman Trophy and later became an NFL icon. His charismatic public image extended into films, commercials, and broadcasting, making him recognizable far beyond sports. Everything changed after Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman were killed in June 1994. Simpson was charged with their murders, leading to a televised criminal trial that became a cultural phenomenon. In October 1995, the jury found him not guilty. That acquittal must remain clear. Simpson was never criminally convicted of those murders. A separate civil case produced a different result. In 1997, a civil jury found Simpson liable for the wrongful deaths of Brown, Simpson, and Goldman and awarded their families millions of dollars in damages. The different standards of proof in criminal and civil proceedings explain why the outcomes could differ. Years later, another case finally sent Simpson to prison. Following a 2007 confrontation involving sports memorabilia in Las Vegas, he was convicted of charges including armed robbery and kidnapping. In 2008, he received a lengthy prison sentence. Simpson was paroled in 2017 after serving roughly 9 years. He died from cancer in April 2024 at age 7. Simpson's legacy remains extraordinarily divisive. His athletic accomplishments are historically significant, yet his name became inseparable from criminal proceedings, civil liability, incarceration, and national arguments about race, celebrity policing, and justice. Few public figures have traveled from universal fame to controversy so dramatically. O.J. Simpson's story remains a powerful example of how one chapter can permanently transform the meaning of everything that came before it. T.I. Clifford Joseph Harris, Jr. T.I., born Clifford Joseph Harris, Jr., built his reputation as one of Atlanta hip-hop's defining voices. Albums such as Trap Music, Urban Legend, and Paper Trail helped popularize trap music nationally, while major hits turned him into a crossover celebrity. Yet his career has also included legal trouble and controversies that repeatedly complicated his public image. One of his most serious legal chapters began in 2007 when federal authorities arrested him shortly before the BET Hip Hop Awards. Prosecutors accused him of attempting to illegally acquire firearms despite being prohibited from possessing them because of a previous felony conviction. T.I. eventually pleaded guilty to federal weapons charges. In 2009, he received a sentence of 1 year and 1 day in federal prison alongside financial penalties and supervised release. He later encountered additional legal problems connected to drug possession and probation violations. Years afterward, a very different controversy erupted. During a 2019 podcast appearance, T.I. said he accompanied his teenage daughter Deja Harris to gynecological appointments and asked about the condition of her hymen as an indication of whether she was sexually active. Medical experts emphasized that hymen examinations cannot reliably determine virginity, and his comments generated widespread criticism. T.I. later addressed the backlash and said aspects of his comments had been misunderstood, while acknowledging that the public discussion embarrassed his daughter. The episode became a broader conversation about parental boundaries, privacy, and misinformation surrounding women's bodies. His story therefore contains different categories of controversy that should not be blurred together: documented criminal convictions on one hand and controversial personal statements on the other. T.I.'s journey shows how success cannot prevent past decisions or words spoken publicly from returning to challenge the reputation an artist spent decades building. Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson became heavyweight boxing's most terrifying young champion, but his life outside the ring produced consequences even greater than many of his defeats inside it. Raised in Brooklyn, Tyson endured a troubled childhood before trainer Sus D'Amato recognized his extraordinary potential. In 1986, at just 20 years old, Tyson defeated Trevor Berbick to become the youngest heavyweight champion in boxing history. His dominance made him an international superstar. Knockouts arrived with frightening speed and enormous purses followed. But Tyson's personal life became increasingly chaotic. His marriage to actress Robin Givens collapsed publicly, his relationship with longtime manager Bill Caton deteriorated, and his professional invincibility ended when Buster Douglas shocked him in 1990. The darkest legal chapter followed soon afterward. In 1991, Tyson was accused of raping Desiree Washington, an 18-year-old Miss Black America contestant in Indianapolis. Tyson maintained that the sexual encounter was consensual. A jury rejected his defense. In 1992, Tyson was convicted of rape and related charges and sentenced to 6 years in prison. He served approximately 3 years before being released on parole in 1995. Tyson returned to boxing and regained heavyweight championships, but controversy continued. His 1997 rematch with Evander Holyfield became infamous when Tyson bit Holyfield's ears, resulting in disqualification and a temporary boxing suspension. In later decades, Tyson spoke publicly about addiction, anger, regret, and his attempts to change. His subsequent reinvention does not erase his conviction or earlier behavior. Mike Tyson's life contains extraordinary achievement beside deeply troubling actions. His story illustrates why redemption can involve acknowledging change without rewriting history, and why becoming a beloved public figure again does not make accountability for the past disappear. Sly Stone. Sly Stone changed American popular music by breaking boundaries that many artists of his era rarely crossed. Born Sylvester Stewart in Texas and raised in California, he became the creative force behind Sly and the Family Stone, an interracial mixed-gender band whose combination of funk, soul, rock, and psychedelia helped reshape popular music. Songs such as Everyday People and Dance to the Music made the group a defining act of the late 1960s. But success gradually collided with instability. As fame intensified, Stone struggled with heavy drug use, missed performances, and increasingly unpredictable behavior. Relationships within the band deteriorated, and the optimism associated with their early music gave way to the darker atmosphere heard on 1971's There's a Riot Going On. The group eventually fractured during the following years. Stone's difficulties continued long after his commercial peak. Financial disputes complicated his later life, including a major lawsuit over royalties. In 2015, a Los Angeles jury awarded him millions of dollars in a case involving former business associates, although subsequent legal proceedings complicated how much he could ultimately recover. For years, Stone largely disappeared from public view. Reports that he was living in a camper van generated sensational headlines, creating a painful contrast with the musician who had once commanded enormous stages. Yet reducing his later years entirely to addiction and financial hardship would distort his legacy. Stone died in June 2025 at age 82 after chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and other health issues, according to his family. Sly Stone's story contains brilliance, addiction, isolation, and extraordinary influence. His personal struggles damaged his career, but they never erased what he created: a revolutionary musical language whose fingerprints can still be heard across funk, rock, soul, and hip-hop. Bill Cosby. For decades, Bill Cosby occupied an unusually powerful position in American entertainment. Through stand-up comedy, television, advertising, and especially The Cosby Show, he became one of the most recognizable black entertainers in the United States. The program dominated television during the 1980s, while Cosby's portrayal of Cliff Huxtable helped create an image of warmth, authority, and family stability. That public image collapsed as numerous women accused Cosby of sexual misconduct spanning decades. The allegations produced intense public scrutiny and multiple legal proceedings. The most consequential criminal case involved Andrea Constant, who accused Cosby of drugging and sexually assaulting her at his Pennsylvania home in 2004. In 2018, Cosby was convicted of 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault and received a prison sentence of 3 to 10 years. However, accuracy requires an important distinction. In 2021, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court overturned his conviction, concluding that prosecuting him violated his due process rights because of an earlier prosecutor's promise not to prosecute. That ruling did not declare that the underlying encounter never happened. It overturned the conviction because of how the prosecution was conducted. Separately, in 2022, a California civil jury found Cosby liable for sexually abusing Judy Huth when she was a teenager in the 1970s and awarded her damages. Cosby has denied numerous allegations against him, making careful attribution essential when discussing claims that have not resulted in legal findings. The contrast between his television persona and his later legal history fundamentally changed how audiences discuss his legacy. Bill Cosby's story demonstrates how cultural achievement, allegations, legal accountability, and due process protections can collide, and why telling such a complicated history requires distinguishing accusations, verdicts, and overturned convictions rather than reducing everything to a single headline. Bobby Brown. Bobby Brown emerged from Boston as a teenage member of New Edition before transforming himself into one of the biggest R&B solo performers of the late 1980s. His 1988 album, Don't Be Cruel, produced hits, including My Prerogative and Every Little Step, helping define the new Jack Swing era and establishing Brown as a charismatic superstar. Behind that success, however, Brown's life became increasingly turbulent. Substance abuse arrests and unstable behavior repeatedly made headlines. His 1992 marriage to Whitney Houston became one of entertainment's most intensely scrutinized relationships, with their personal struggles eventually becoming nearly as famous as their music. Brown has spoken openly about his drug use and the destructive environment surrounding parts of the marriage. Houston also struggled with addiction. Their relationship included serious conflict, and Brown was charged with battery following a 2003 domestic incident involving Houston. He later pleaded no contest to a lesser charge. They divorced in 2007. The years afterward brought devastating personal losses. Houston died in 2012. Their daughter, Bobby Christina Brown, died in 2015 at only 22 after being found unresponsive in a bathtub months earlier. In 2020, Brown's son, Bobby Brown Jr., died at 28 from the combined effects of alcohol, cocaine, and fentanyl. Those tragedies should not be sensationalized or treated as punishment for earlier behavior. They belong to a complicated human story involving addiction, family grief, and survival. Brown has continued performing and has publicly discussed sobriety and his past mistakes. Bobby Brown's life reveals the enormous distance that can exist between celebrity glamour and private turmoil. His story is not simply about scandal. It is about a man whose greatest successes were followed by consequences, grief, and an ongoing attempt to live beyond his darkest years. Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry helped create the vocabulary of rock and roll. Beginning in the 1950s, songs including Maybelline Roll Over Beethoven and Johnny B. Good combined blues guitar storytelling and youthful energy in ways that influenced generations of musicians. His importance is enormous, but his personal and legal history makes his legacy far more complicated than his music alone suggests. Berry encountered serious legal trouble more than once. In 1959, he was arrested under the Mann Act after transporting a 14-year-old girl across state lines. His first conviction was overturned because of concerns about the trial judge's conduct, but Berry was convicted again following a retrial and served prison time. Decades later, another disturbing controversy emerged around Berry Park, his restaurant in Wentzville, Missouri. In 1990, women filed lawsuits alleging that hidden cameras had recorded them in the women's restroom. Berry denied involvement in installing the cameras, and the civil litigation was ultimately settled with numerous women. A related police investigation uncovered videotapes from Berry's home. Authorities also found marijuana, leading to criminal charges. Berry ultimately pleaded guilty to misdemeanor marijuana possession. It is important not to transform every allegation surrounding the hidden camera scandal into a criminal conviction when describing the case. Berry continued performing for decades and remained widely honored for his musical influence. He died in 2017 at age 90. That leaves an uncomfortable but necessary historical balance. Chuck Berry's contributions to rock and roll are undeniable, but cultural greatness does not require audiences to ignore troubling chapters in an artist's life. His story shows that acknowledging extraordinary art and confronting documented misconduct can and sometimes must exist together. Yo, Kanye West. Your formerly known professionally as Kanye West built one of the most influential careers in 21st century music. From the college dropout and late registration to My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, his production sampling fashion ventures and willingness to reinvent his sound made him a defining cultural figure. Yet his public behavior increasingly became inseparable from controversy. One of the most consequential turning points came in 2022 when Ye made a series of anti-Semitic statements. The backlash extended far beyond social media. Adidas terminated its partnership with him, describing his remarks as unacceptable, while other businesses also ended relationships with the artist. The collapse of those partnerships dramatically affected his business empire and public standing. Controversy continued afterward. You repeatedly generated condemnation through statements involving Jewish people and Nazi imagery. In 2025, his song Heil Hitler was widely condemned and removed or restricted by major platforms. These were public actions rather than anonymous rumors, making them substantially different from unverified stories about his private life. Yor has also faced lawsuits and allegations concerning workplace conduct and former employees. Those claims should be described as allegations unless established through legal findings. Similarly, speculation about his relationships should never be presented as fact simply because it generates sensational headlines. In May 2025, you publicly stated that he was done with anti-Semitism and apologized for people he had hurt. Whether audiences view such statements as meaningful accountability remains deeply contested. His musical influence is undeniable, but so is the damage his repeated rhetoric caused to his reputation. Ye's story demonstrates how extraordinary creativity does not insulate a celebrity from consequences, and how repeated public choices can eventually become as central to a legacy as the art that created the fame. These stories prove that fame, talent, and cultural influence can never erase the consequences of personal choices. From R. Kelly and Suge Knight to Mike Tyson, Cuba, Gooding Jr., Chris Brown, and Ye, each name carries a complicated legacy shaped by extraordinary success, alongside controversy, legal trouble, or deeply troubling behavior. Some faced criminal convictions, others civil cases or public backlash, while a few spent years attempting to rebuild their reputations. But here's the question: Should society separate great art and athletic achievement from the actions of the person behind them, or should misconduct permanently change how we remember their legacy? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to Golden Black Legends for more revealing stories behind the icons we thought we knew.